two-time Golden Globe winning actor. He's a writer, he's a producer, he's a director, he's a novelist, and he's a singer-songwriter. You should check out his name. There's a lot more to get through, so just hold your applause till the end. He's done a lot. You might have recently seen him make an appearance in the revival of David Lynch's Twin Peaks. Chief of Staff Denise Bryson. For 7 seasons, he played Hank Moody in the acclaimed television. And for 20 years, as FBI agent Fox Mulder.
20 years without a promotion.
He's helped solidify the X-Files status as a cult series and embedded himself within the pop culture consciousness of all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, reprising the role of Fox Mulder in Audible's X-Files cold cases, Mr. David Duchovny. Might be wondering, where's the Scully to our Mulder tonight? Gillian Anderson very much wanted to be here, but she's overseas filming a project and couldn't join us. But for now, we're all here, and this is super exciting, so let's get it started. David, I wanted to kick this one off with you, sir. Can you tell us, when Cold Cases opens, where's Mulder? Where do we find him?
In the Witness Protection Program. It's true. Living with Scully as Mr. and Mrs. Blake. Yes, that's right. So, you know, the fans that like to see Mulder and Scully in that conjugal bliss. You can hear it. You can't see it.
In color.
You can imagine.
So let's talk about Mulder a little bit. When you first started playing Mulder, did you imagine that the X-Files and your character were going to endure for 20 years? I mean, with or without a promotion. And this one actually, Dirk, I want to lob this one to you. What do you think accounts for that?
The longevity of X-Files.
Yes, and Mulder.
Well, I will say that when I auditioned for the role in, I guess it was 93 or 92, our casting director was a guy named Randy Stone, who has since died. But Randy said to me, and I don't know how he knew this, but he said, I want you to do this, and it'll be the only job you'll ever need. And he said, I've only said that to one other person. And he said that he told that to Woody Harrelson when he did Cheers. And Randy knew something that none of us knew, somehow. So, you know, the first movie, I think, was dedicated to Randy Stone. He was a great casting director.
I think that also Chris Carter created a really very clever thing, because X-Files sounds really simple until you get into it and then it becomes complicated. It's the obvious becomes, when you start to peel away the layers, much more nuanced. And I think, without wishing to embarrass David, they got an actor who would actually get through those layers and go through 10 seasons, 2 movies, and everything else, and still be unpeeling stuff, and it's still interesting to watch him create the character and find new levels.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we were talking earlier about how, you know, this whole new idea of Audible series like this, and how it harkens back to radio plays, you know, from the 40s and 50s that I won't say I used to listen to, because I'm not quite that old, but I did have a car that was somehow tuned to a station. Now, when I lost the car, I lost the station, so I haven't listened. I don't know how to get back there. But I used to listen to The Shadow and shows like that on the original radio plays, and there was something charming and powerful in those. And when we were talking about it, just backstage now, I said, you know, really all you have when you do these is you need a story. I mean, you can't get by with special effects. You can't get by with cinematography. You can't get by with a soundtrack. You can't get by with pretty faces or whatever. You just need a story. You have to have a story. And I think that's the power of these kinds of shows, certain podcasts or Audible like this, where, you know, it's a story. It goes back to, I think, being around a campfire, you know, in prehistory, which I was also at.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, actually, and Colby.
Wait, Dirk, you asked Dirk the question, and I hogged it.
And you did, so I was going to ask
Dirk
you.
had something to say.
Dirk, you might the next one. What do you think, Dirk?
Well, I just think, you know, I love the power of sound to create image in the mind, and, you know, my big thing is that when you're listening to this stuff, you're not just watching David and Gillian on screen, you're actually in the room with them. That's what the ears do. They communicate directly with this amazing CGI computer that is your brain. And the beauty of doing this was there were a couple of moments when I'm doing the final mixes, and it was this moment when I realized that I was in the room with Mulder and Scully, and they go into the old office, and David goes across to the waste bin and finds his old sandwich in that he left there 5 years before. And David did a gag about looking in the bin so you can hear him put his head in the bin. And you don't need the pictures. The sounds tell you the whole story, and this is the beauty of it. And it's been really a joy to work on it, because the performances really, really work. And it's a very funny mix.
What's interesting that we say about that is when we first did the show, the first year of the show in '93, it was not, we did not have a big budget because we weren't a hit. We were on a network that was an upstart network at the time. Fox was considered the fourth network, and there were the three big ones, and then Fox was bullshit, you know. So the good news was we didn't need great numbers to stay on the air, which was also great, no, honestly, so we just had to survive. But we couldn't show, we didn't have the money to show kick-ass special effects or to make kick-ass makeup and all the stuff that we could do by the time the third or fourth, fifth season rolled around and we were getting the money to make those shows. So John Bartley, who was the original director of photography, DP, he just made everything doc. He was Australian. Just make it doc. And because Chris and John rightly figured out that it was really your imagination that was going to scare the shit out of you more than crappy or good special effects. So you're really thrown back on that here as well. And if you're sitting, you know, just listening, you're watching the movie play out on the screen of your mind, and you're creating.
It was funny, when I came through immigration, sorry David, when I came through immigration at the airport and the guy asked me why I was here, was I here for Comic-Con? And I said, yes I am. And he said, what to do with it? I said, to the X-Files. And this is an immigration guy, you know how fun-loving they are. And so I said, I'm doing the X-Files. He said, oh, he went like that. And I said, what? He said, that one with the thing under the bed. It was so cool. It really touches people.
I can't imagine you getting stopped at
Yeah, you wanted to look through my golf clubs.
So, David, let's talk a little bit more about your performance in the studio. What was the most unique or the most different aspect of doing the audio performance versus being on screen as Fox Mulder?
Oh, they're very, very different. I mean, a lot of Mulder is the voice and certain rhythms. So you have to find that, even though you're reading it, you haven't memorized it. It's not inlaid in that way in your mind. But you have to kind of figure out the rhythm, Mulder's rhythm, reading it off the page. And I realized at some point that, you know, it really is just, it's going to be my voice that's going to stand in, it's going to be the performance here. So there's certain kind of size that you can bring to it, or, you know, make a bigger performance because you don't have your entire body to get through it. These are interesting questions for an actor to do, you know, interesting challenges for an actor to face, you know, if it's just your voice, you know, and you kind of have to quell the instinct to also be the director and tell the story and just play the character, you know, within it. So you really, you know, being a novice pretty much at this form of it, I would, you know, have to lean on the generosity of Dirk and our director and people that know better how to gauge the level of performance. I mean, as you were telling me earlier, you know, you're going to have different actors coming in at different levels, and somebody's got to make all those levels work. You know, that's not an easy job. You know,
not at all. I have to say, William de Vries, who basically, you know, originated the idea of going this way and then directed all the episodes, did a brilliant job because he was marshalling, you know, a cast of established people like David and Gillian and some of the other characters. I have to be careful who I name because it should come as a pleasant surprise to you to find some old friends turning up. Bill had a huge job and did an amazing job, and real kudos to him for doing so well.
Yeah.
So Dirk, let's talk about your approach to the project. Did you come at it as a fan first, or did you look at it as it's just another job?
No, I never.
Okay,
never
you can be honest.
Yeah, it was a real chore. It was such a chore to do the X-Files. I was thrilled to bits to be asked to be involved. I just wanted to. The thing is, I believe in this medium so much, and what's so exciting is, although, as you can hear, I'm not entirely American. I do love this country and I love your culture, and the one thing that in Britain we've kept when I worked at the BBC is what we call radio drama. And in the 1950s, kind of in this country, radio drama, as we call it, sort of faded away with television coming on and so on. And the thing is that there was some amazing, amazing radio drama coming out of America in the 1930s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, you know, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, you know, one of the most iconic productions ever. So what really thrilled me was the chance to, and I know podcasts are coming back, but it's a slow process, and I'm guessing there are a lot of X-Files fans who don't habitually listen to audiobooks or radio drama or podcasts, as they're now called. And this was my big chance to kind of come and evangelize for this amazing medium, which I absolutely love. And what's brilliant is, you know, David and Gillian, who, you know, could be sitting at home, or David could be playing with his band, or, you know, Gillian's off in some classical drama, but they came in and joined us in on this because they really believe in the medium too. And what I'm hoping when you hear this is that you'll discover is this whole immersiveness. It's like a sort of virtual reality you can enter where you can create your own art. And it's really, this was the challenge for me, Kat. I just thought, this is a chance. We've got Audible, who've got behind it, David and Gillian have got behind it, many other actors who I cannot name have got behind it, who you'll enjoy the performances of. And then the joy is then you'll discover how fantastic a world is inside your head. And let's face it, how many times could you not miss a thing and still get the ironing done? This is such a great medium.
So Dirk's been alluding to it, but David, I want to ask you specifically, when you heard that Gillian Anderson, Mitch Pileggi, William B. Davis, Bruce Harwood, Dean Haglund, and Tom Brady were all back.
She's told you.
How did you feel about that? What did that mean to you and to the project and your participation?
Nothing. What was important to me was that it made sense to Chris Carter. You know, that was really the only thing I had to check about was, are we telling stories that we're going to be proud of? You know, I'm not going to check in with the other actors to figure out whether I want to do it. I want to do it if it seems like a worthwhile project and it's not going against what, you know, what we've created or what Chris has really set in motion. So to me, the most important thing was, you know, has Chris vetted these stories? Are they stories that he likes? Because I'm not in the habit of doing that myself. So that was really it for me. It was like, Chris digs it, believes in it, I'm in.
Can I?
And,
sorry.
You know, of course, Tom Brady was doing it.
I was only going to apologize. These are based on what were known as the Season 10 comic books, graphic novels released by IDW. And the creation of those was very much overseen by Chris Carter. But more importantly, I have to say these stories are absolutely top stories. And I say that as someone who's worked with Douglas Adams, Neil Gaiman, so people who know what they're doing. And the person who's sort of really brought them together and created something where you have individual stories of different lengths. Some run over an hour, some run as short as half an hour. And you put them all together, and within that is a sort of sine wave of an overreaching plot, which is really cleverly devised, so that you won't at any point feel cheated, that any rugs have been pulled from under you, it all makes sense. And the guy who did this is actually with us, and it's Joe Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, take a bow, Joe, please. Take a bow. You know, a lot of people
right over here.
I think, yeah, almost it should be, because it's not easy. If you've ever picked up a pen and tried to write something, it's not easy. Being a master storyteller is tough, but Joe really is, and you must check out his other work in the comic book business and also his other writings generally. He's really superb, and it was an honor to work with his stuff, and he was actually also a really great bloke to talk about Led Zeppelin with when we weren't talking X-Files.
So Dirk, when you read Joe's stories for the first time, was there anything that struck you like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this in audio? Or, I'm so excited to bring this to audio, I can't wait, it's going to sound amazing.
It was more like the latter, yeah. I don't worry too much about, although invisible people, Joe, don't do them. No. You know, you can do...
Doesn't work on radio.
Well, no, it's not doubles of people, like two of the same person. Can I tell you, man, that's a tough one. So, you know, just, you know, if ever we do this again. But otherwise, nothing is impossible in radio. You can go from the creation of a universe to the brain of a fly as it goes through that fly's butt, as it hits your widget. Was that indelicate? I'm so sorry. I'm foreign.
So, David, let's talk about the sessions themselves a little bit. Were there any outtakes, any bloopers, any funny moments in the studio that maybe you want to share with us?
You know, it's hard to have. You know, because you're not alone, but you're working in your own world, working off of the script, and it's kind of you know, most of the funny shit that happens on set is with the human beings that you.
But there was one scene in particular where we were in the studio and you read a line and you went, no, I've got something better.
Was it the Frohickey one?
It was the Frohickey one.
Oh,
that one.
So this is where I tell them how fucking funny I am? Listen to this. So there I am. I think the line was, you know, you remember Frohickey, he's a little dude. You know, he was our first AD, Tom Braidwood. He was not an actor.
Wow.
So, the line was, oh, Frohickey, large as life, big as life, or something like that. Because I'm so funny, I said, small as life, or short as life? You should have been there. Short as life. Tom Braidwood, I love that man.
He's funny. I've got a little one that David didn't remember, which is, you know, when you read this...
Well, the way Tom Braidwood got cast is we had this director named Billy Graham, not the televangelist. That was his name. And Glenn Morgan and James Wong had written these lone gunman characters, and Billy Graham said, you know, they were looking at Frohickey's, actors were coming in to read for Frohickey, and Billy Graham said, no, we need somebody sleazy like Braidwood. And they were like, why don't we just use Braidwood?
I'm trying to remember, actually, Joe, you did a great line for him. He says, I'd run through fires and I'd run through fire and wrestle bees for that woman. He says, talking about Scully. But the one I was remembering was, you know, you read this stuff cold, and it's not like you're on a set.
There were some times I didn't know what the hell I was talking about.
And there was one particular one where a load of stuff...
You get to the end of a sentence, you're like, that was a question. So you're like, blah, 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 blah. Huh? Maybe we should do that again.
But you saved most of those. But this one you couldn't save because it was a point where it's getting... The atmosphere in the scene is getting so high and so strong, and it was something like, look, over there, that guy is on fire. And during the line, Dave, you could hear David's sense of humour kick in. And by the end of the line, it's supposed to be dramatic, but it was a laugh, so I cut that line. Yeah. I just added more whoosh.
Guy's on fire.
Actually, did we get that? Because I can cut again.
It's a fan's dream to get to explore in some of the worlds that, you know, we mentioned in your introduction, but it's a really daunting one too, right? So sitting here in front of some of the most loyal X-Files fans that you could ever find. How much pressure did you feel to get it right and to do the series justice?
I had to be dragged in here by horses. That's how much pressure. I mean, basically, if you guys don't like it, then, you know, I'm not giving you my home address, put it that way. Look, you know, it's the X-Files, it's iconic, and these guys are brilliant actors, and it wasn't going to leave my computer for the final mix until I was absolutely certain that it would be acceptable. And of course, it's not just the final mix, but the scripts had to be something that could be put in front of David and Gillian and they wouldn't throw straight back, you know, in your face. But what's really exciting to me about it is by the end of it, I was caught, even though I knew it, I'd done the adaptation of Joe's fantastic stories, and, you know, a lot of the sound design at the end I finessed a little bit and so on and so forth, and we had some fantastic guys on it. I was lucky enough just to kind of hang the pictures after they built the house. But here's the thing, listening to it at the end, I was caught up in the story again, and I knew what would happen. I knew where it was going to go. So, you know, I felt, well, that's about as good as I can get it, and I really hope I hope you like it. I really, really hope you like it.
So you feel confident, and yet you still wore that disguise to come here.
David's trying to get me to tell you that my hairdresser died in 1973. I tell you what, these cost a fortune on eBay.
David, let's talk about some of the nitty-gritty of performance and other things. Was there a particular scene from Cold Cases that stood out in your mind, either that was hard to do, that was hard to do because it was audio only? Or...
Well, I mean, you know, you mentioned the fire business, which I don't recall, but that's the hardest part. And it can be hard on set as well if you're in a high stress, high pressure situation and you're acting off of you know, a tennis ball or Gillian eating an apple off camera or something. You know? So it's like you gotta bring it. You know, it can be like this level that might not feel organic. So when you're doing that in the studio and you've got these intense situations, you know, you're sitting there and you're reading into a microphone, and you know, you want to ground it in reality, and yet you're also aware that you need this kind of heightened tension, and you can start to feel a little shitty about yourself, like you're, you know, full of shit guy actor. So you got to strike a balance somehow, and you know, I think you can fake it a little more when you're just doing the audio, because I think the level, it's more forgivable to go that high, to go that hot.
But it's tough because if you're an actor who works with the real, you have to bed it into something real. It's tough.
Yeah, you want to try. You want to try.
Yeah.
But there's also somebody who said for just jumping off and doing something. You know, just go for it. You know, the guy's on fire, so fucking hang on. So I apologize. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it was right before lunch or something. I don't know. But I should have went for it. I'm an asshole.
Dirk, those tough scenes that were harder in audio because we couldn't see what was going on, how did you work with those and really bring them to life in audio without the visuals?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of timing out of stuff that you need to do, and you know, an actor, you know, David will give a certain performance and he'll see it in his mind's eye, you know, the action is indicated in the script, but then you come back to the other actors involved, or you come back to the effects, and then it's a little bit like, this sounds really pretentious, and I have to tell you I'm a drummer, so I really don't know what I'm talking about when I use a musical analogy, but I'll carry on in the vein of if you believe me. But you kind of, well, actually being a drummer it's like being a jazz drummer. You know where to drop the bombs, you know where to put the fills in that push the song forward, and it's kind of the same thing. So if you like, stretching this to snapping point, this metaphor, it's like David's singing and playing the melody, and I just want to stick in a little grace note on the drums. That's really bad. Sorry, but that's good.
It's good. Like a riff.
Yeah, that's better. Grace note.
Yeah.
Drum.
Yeah.
That's all.
Like a fill. A fill.
A film. Yes.
We got it.
Okay.
Is there another show after this? Because now we're getting good. Is there? Oh, this is it? Oh.
We were.
I didn't know this is it. So we apologize.
We were very funny out there.
David, why do you think fans should listen to Cold Cases, and what do you think they're going to get out of listening to it as an audio drama?
Well, I think I kind of touched on that. I think it was my first answer was I think that this opens up the show. I think it's interesting for me to sit back and watch the show go through all these incarnations. You know, from the comic books in the beginning, to movies, to, I guess there were some video games, to, I call them video games. They don't call them that anymore, do they? And that, what? Novels, audiobooks, thank you. Good. Yeah, the ruins. Is that what you call them, or is that the name of the book? So this is another iteration of it, and I actually think this is a very organic one, because it really does bring me back to, you know, some scene of humans sitting around a campfire and telling themselves scary stories, you know, or kids. And that was always I remember talking to Chris, and it was really a discussion with the theme, the musical theme for the show. You know that?
Uncanny.
I'm not going to do it. I hear it behind me often. I can't say that I enjoy it. So he said to Mark Snow, the writer of the music of the show, I want a theme that kids will whistle around a campfire, you know? And it is, and you know, he made it whistle-y. It sounds a little like a whistle, so he took that literally. But I feel like that's the heart of the show. You know, it's these stories that are spooky and scary, you know, and riveting in some way. And we can, you know, get into how much money we're going to spend on CGI now and the special effects and putting it up on the screen, or you can take it back to playing it on somebody's mind screen. And I think that this is a very interesting way to go about it. It really speaks to the original power of storytelling and of this type of storytelling. Ghost storytelling really is what we're doing. We're telling ghost stories. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you're into the show, you'd be into this.
So speaking of ghost stories and scary stuff, Question for both of you guys. You can fight it out who's going to go first, but it's a serious one. If you had to go by way of one of the monsters from Cold Cases, which one would you pick?
Well, can I preface this by saying that some of these you don't want to listen to with the lights off, because I was mixing some at 3 a.m. with no other lights on in the studio, and I kept jerking the headphones off to check there was nothing in there with me. I'm not joking. But the one, and I did the noises. No, for me, the Fluke Man. Love the Fluke Man. Yeah, it's just fantastic. Whose name is Malik, by the way, because the guy who was in the outfit in the video, I met him, and he was a really nice guy. We had a great conversation. I said, "Hi, how are you?" He said, "Oh." Sorry.
I mean, David, can you follow that? I feel like you had.
We should have fought over that. I think that I was on an airplane, and this guy sits down next to me. It was like in 1995, going from LA to Vancouver. And the guy's looking at me, and I'm like, fuck, you know, like 3 hours of this. And, you know, he's looking at me like, and I'm like, you know. And, you know, an hour goes by, an hour and a half. Every time I look over, he's smiling at me. And he finally says, "Will you sign my book?" And I say, "Sure." He says, will you make it out to my nemesis?" And I said, "Why would I do that? Why are you my nemesis?" And he goes, "I'm Darren Morgan. I played the Fluke Man." I'd never seen him without. He's the brother of one of our writers, and he became himself one of our great writers. And I had met him in the suit and said hello, and he said very much like your guy, "Aww." And then, but it was the longest fucking joke, an hour and a half, smiling at me. I say, "Fluke Man."
So let's talk about some of the fans, and let's talk about the canon versus non-canon argument. Where do you shake out on that one? Because in the graphic novels, there were some things that weren't accounted for in the series and in the movies, and obviously we covered those. And I feel like you probably get this question a lot, but humor us. Where do you, yes, you sir. Humor us on how do we feel about these new stories that we're bringing up in Cold Cases? Do you care? Should we care as fans?
I don't care. I mean, personally. I mean, for me, it's, as I said, when I looked at this project and it came my way, I'm not the keeper of the canon. I'm not that. I don't know what the canon is, honestly. And so, like I said in my other answer, if Chris was cool with how these stories were being told and what they were and what they concern, then I'm cool with it. I mean, Chris is really, it's his show, and he's the keeper of that stuff, not me at all. So I'm, you know, in all honesty, it doesn't, I mean, I'm just interested in telling stories. Whether or not they fall in line with certain other stories we've told, I don't really know. So I'm into making good stories, and it seemed to me that these were good stories.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, credit to Joe, who, when he did these stories, there was no sign of a season 10 happening, there was no sign of any more X-Files happening. And he took the thing by the scruff of its neck, and Chris Carter, you know, and they talked to each other about it, and they came up with a series of stories that would follow on from where it had left off. And what Joe did brilliantly, in my estimation, is he got a classic X-Files vibe. If there's a classic period of X-Files where all those, you know, regular iconic characters weren't just sort of turning up, but they were actually, you know, a germane part of the story. And that's what he's done here. And I have to say, yes, fine, you know, this may happen in an alternate timeline. It may happen in a compressed area of time between whatever, but it doesn't matter. These are absolutely X-Files stories, and the joy of it is to actually hear these stories come to life. I haven't had this much fun since filling the gap, since we were out in the dressing room. Did that sound wrong?
See, that's what you can't do in an Audible book. You can't do.
No, but that's what I wrote.
Yeah.
Did you not get that?
So, Dirk, let's talk about the stories and the stories in the beginning. What's your first memory of X-Files, of watching it? Were you a fan when the series first aired?
I thought it was an interesting premise, and what I thought was, and I kind of misunderstood it because every week something would get solved. So week 1, UFOs are solved. Week 2, you know, whatever it is, you know, the weird cockroach people would be solved. And that was the clever thing. And then that didn't happen. And what I thought Chris Carter was so clever about was that it was about the people. It was about this relationship between these two people. And like all things, you know, you say Jurassic Park is about dinosaurs escaping, but it's not. Jurassic Park is about nature, the ungovernability of life, the chaos theory. It's a little heavy-handed, but that's the thing. And X-Files, Alien isn't about the monsters. I can say this, having done 2 Alien things. It's not about the monsters, it's about the people trying to get away from the monsters. Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner isn't about chases. It's about problem solving that never, ever, ever, ever works. Which is how we all live our lives, you know, the dripping tap that you just can't fix. And with the X-Files, I'm not comparing you to a dripping tap.
No, I was just thinking about the Roadrunner.
But the thing about it is that you get interested in seeing how these two people work through these problems. And also, when the problem isn't solved at the end, there's always a little tail that leads in another direction. And gradually, this is so pretentious, but I'll keep going. But it is like a tapestry, all these threads weave into this thing, and that was what's so clever about it. So by the time we come to do this audio series, these audio movies, as I call them, because I can't think of a way to describe them. Radio drama doesn't really work, and podcast is just a description of how you might get them. But if you talk about audio movies, which is a lousy term, but it's the best I can think of, and you bring all this tapestry, and it's just as colourful and bright, and all the threads of character are still in there. It's a real pleasure. And hearing David and Gillian working together again in these contexts with guys like the Lone Gunman and the cigarette smoking man, it's a really fulfilling thing. And it's all down to the genius of the creation of Chris Carter.
One more non-binding question, but if you could not do it and you had to choose one of the 3 lone gunmen to narrate your autobiography, which one would you pick? And I feel like, David, you should go first this time.
Flute Man.
Thanks. I'd have Frohickey for the comedy value. Yeah, definitely.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Fine choice.
Just be careful when I turn around, I didn't tread on him. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Oh, come on, it was a joke!
Well, Dirk, I'm going to let you kind of maybe pick it up from that joke a little bit.
Okay.
In terms of what's next, we have some really exciting news for X-Files fans.
Well, I hope it's exciting, but Cold Case is not the end of the story. And the fall, we're going to release another series called Stolen Lives. Here's the really good bit, the plot thickens.
All right, so I think we're gonna open it up to the floor for a couple of questions. So if you guys want to come on up, if you've got a question for David or Dirk, let's hear a couple.
Star Trek.
Hello, David.
Hi.
Um,
I'm a big Star Trek fan.
I know, I met you at Wizard World last year in Chicago. So, Mulder and Scully's son, that's an X-File in itself. So, are we going to see or hear, actually, what happens? Do Mulder and Scully find him?
Are you talking about in this iteration or?
In either of the audios.
You want to talk about that? You want to talk about that?
There is a continuation of the William story. It's yes, there's a ghostly trace of William in it, if that makes any sense.
Any hints as to what's happened? Has he turned into a monster?
Well, he's a teenager. So.
We don't get to find out what posters he's got on his bedroom wall, put it that way.
And I don't know. I mean, I assume you're asking for the episodes we're about to film in August. I honestly don't know. I haven't seen Word 1, so I'm looking forward to getting the script very soon. Very, very soon.
Awesome.
I hope.
Get long and possible.
Hi guys.
Hi.
I just wanted to say first of all, David, that as a kid, I grew up on X-Files. My parents would put me to bed and I would sneak around in the hallway and watch episodes behind the couch and scare the shit out of myself. But I actually wanted to say one of my favorite episodes of X-Files was X-Cops. I don't know if you remember that.
Sure, I do.
It was coincidentally actually filmed a few blocks from my house in Venice Beach.
Venice.
But yeah. But I wanted to say, I think that episode really encaptures like everything that makes X-Files really awesome. Like it was funny, it was scary, it was exciting, and the filmography was really cool. I just wanted to ask actually both you and Dirk, can we expect similar feel in the audiobooks?
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring that up, and you can take it from where I leave it. But you know, X-Cops is. If I'm remembering correctly, it's shot on video, like Cops, and obviously there's not a lot, it's kind of a live feel. We did long scenes, we didn't do much coverage at all. And you can't do any special effects, really. There's no, you see nothing. It actually, the show, if I'm remembering correctly, is about the monsters in your own mind that you see, that you see what you're scared of, but nobody sees at home what anybody's seeing, because there's no way that you can be shooting this live-looking scene and then, okay, there's a monster, and then you're back. So I think that the problem-solving of a show like that, which Vince Gilligan wrote and very intelligently set as the monsters of your mind, is very similar to the problems facing storytellers in this medium, because you can't see the monsters either.
Perfect answer. And yes, we have got lots of scary bits and we've got funny bits. And we've just got better monsters, really, you know, because they're all in here.
Exactly. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good.
Hi, so I know when X-Files very first came out, Gillian was more of the believer and you were more of the skeptic. Is that still true, or have you kind of started to believe in some things?
Yeah, we just switched it now. Now she's the believer, I'm the skeptic. We're just going to do it that way. No. I mean, those are the characters. They're set. I mean, there's a certain suspension of disbelief that has to happen, especially for Scully's character, that she could see as much as she's seen and still not believe. So there's some it's tough sometimes in terms of stretching the credibility of a character from week to week. Even just on a physical level, you know, because we get our asses kicked, and then we'd show up next week looking fine. You know, so there's a certain amount of lack of linear time in our show. We don't know exactly when the episodes are happening. We just know they're happening in some space. But yes, those characters are set in stone. That's the way they go.
I mean, like you as a person.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So am I, what was I in the beginning? I was the skeptic?
Yeah, like Gillian more actually believed in aliens and you were more of a skeptic.
Yeah.
Or aliens slash.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. This is for David. Even though you played the same character, are there any like difficult differences between voice acting and real acting?
It's okay.
I think that question was for Dirk.
They just fake it with me. Actually, that's true in more than one walk of life.
It's, you know, it's a fine question because it's all, wherever you're going to be putting your performance, you can take it from mime, go all the way to the biggest screen you can find and take it back to radio. There's going to be different levels. You got to, as an actor, you got to figure it out. And that's the fun part of it. And even within the playing of the show itself, some episodes are straighter than others, some are goofier and funnier than others, some stretch the believability of the characters more than others. And you have to find a way to make that believable. That's your job. That's basically, that's what your job is. So that's the fun part of the job. You know, the more challenges you get, the more fun you have, or me personally anyway. So it is challenging to go at something with just your voice, you know, especially telling these kind of active stories.
Thank
You know,
you.
when, I'm not done. You're tired of my answer? Go on. No, but I don't know if you're looping, you know, if you're doing additional dialogue, ADR, you know, and you're doing a fight scene, you know, the guy will say, you know, I need some effort, you know, and I've been acting for a long, long time, and I've done lots of movies and lots of television, and I've done lots of fights, and I've never not been asked by a guy in a booth to give me some fight sounds, you know, and that feels crappy. Because you're in there. At first, when I was a young actor, I was like, no, this is fake, I'm not going to do it, just use what you got on the day. And then I realized that a lot of times those fake sounds that you do sound better than what you got on the day. So, you know, you're sitting there like, yeah, exactly, you're laughing. I'm mortified. So there's a little bit of that when you're given the level that you need in this type of thing. And there's some of that feels fake and that feels like, but you know, it's all fake at the end of the day. Even the stuff that's real, it's all fake.
Hello. So I'm actually asking this question for my friend Pauline, which is why I'm currently videotaping. She's out in Scotland, but she's an insanely big fan and loves you immensely. And so I asked her, I might have a chance to ask David anything you want, what is it? And her reply was, that episode of X-Files, where it was sort of like Groundhog's Day, where you kept repeating it, did you have to go through a waterbed every single time it popped? Did they make you go through that?
It's from Scotland.
She's currently Scully in Scotland for a wedding. Not her.
Oh.
Not her wedding, but...
Okay. No.
You only have to go to one waterbed?
Yeah.
Alright, and what's your opinion on waterbeds today?
They seem to be, you know, condoned by the American Spinal Association. Fuck if I know. Seem fine to me. Does anybody have a waterbed anymore? How many people have a waterbed in this room? Look at that. Hey, leak.
Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
I'm a huge fan of the X-Files, but my question has nothing to do with the X-Files.
Sure.
So you actually make a reference to Savonarola, the bonfire of the Vanitas, on page 99.
To what?
You made a reference to Savonarola, the bonfire of the Vanitas.
I did?
You did. And I'm an art historian, so I would actually like to know if you have a favorite classical artist, and also who your favorite author is, and why. And will you sign my book?
Yeah, I can talk to you about that afterwards because I honestly don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you have to show me the page. So I'd be happy to sign your book if you come up afterwards. All right.
Okay.
Great.
With that non-answer, I think we can fit one more in if we want one more question.
So you see, it's not just I'm very unaware of much of what I do.
I know.
Hello, sir. My name is Mike Louie. I was a long-time animator on The Simpsons, director. I animated you.
So you did the red Speedo thing?
The main thing I remember, like, did I don't know. It's a long time ago. But the director of the show, he knew what a big fan I was or whatever, and so he came out and they drugged me off another show. By the way, it's 9 months from beginning to end of a single episode.
My apologies.
No. You don't know. Come on, you're an educated guy.
I should know that.
I know too. But if I have to ask a question, I'll just ask something like, what's your favorite episode?
A favorite episode of The X-Files?
The X-Files.
I like, you know, there's a few for different reasons, I think. I love Postmodern Prometheus. I like Small Potatoes, I think I like. That sounds like I'm doing well so far. So quit there.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.